What's up, guys? Welcome to an all-new, very special episode of Convos on the Pedicab. Right now, we have an extremely special guest. We got City Council candidate in District 2, former elite professional boxer, Casey Ramos.
Thank you for having me, Alex. I appreciate it, and I appreciate your endorsement also.
Yes.
You know, that's real big news. Real good timing, and I think it was the right move for both of us.
I agree. You know, and I'm going to be very honest too, since we're jumping right into this.
Yeah.
I had no interest in wanting to run for city council at all. It was literally the last thing that I wanted to do. All I wanted to do, I just wanted to ride my pedicab, do jiu-jitsu, spend time with my girlfriend, and make rap songs about conspiracy theories. That's it.
Yeah.
That's literally all I wanted to do. But you know, when our city officials are actively trying to push me out of Austin through expedited gentrification housing policies, and then by shutting down the economy and not letting me make a living so that I can stay here, well, you have to fight back, because if you want to live somewhere and if you want to build a life for yourself, you have to take a stand. Otherwise, people are going to walk all over you.
Yeah, man.
It's like standing up to a bully. You know, the only way that you don't get bullied is if you stand up to one and you fight back.
Right.
So I ran because of that. And then I saw Casey running too, and I'm like, oh, shit. If I knew Casey was running, I wouldn't have even bothered to throw my name in the hat. But, you know, I follow through on what I commit to. I thought I had really good ideas, and so does Casey. But, you know, he didn't expound on some of them as much, and I brought some of these ideas to the forefront that Casey likes a lot. And then after a while, I got these ideas to be a lot more mainstream, and I got attention from them. And then, you know, we looked at the data, we looked at the math, and we realized that, you know, Casey has a much better chance of winning and also getting into a runoff. But I also now have enough support where I can help him.
Right.
And, you know, ultimately, I feel like we really need people like myself in government. And, well, Casey, he's a person like myself, and the last thing you ever want to be is Elizabeth Warren on Super Tuesday. So that's why I made the decision at the time that I made my decision.
Yeah, man. No, it was good timing, and I appreciate it. And yeah, we got a lot of same ideas. Sometimes we don't always align, you know, perfectly. But I mean, we're young. We're two young men. We're living in a growing city, and we're trying to get our footing.
Exactly,
right?
and we both understand the need for a middle ground.
Right.
On everything, with COVID, with well, I think with like the Code Next, we're pretty much on the exact same page.
Right.
With like the rail stuff, we're on the exact same page.
Right.
With the homelessness, we're pretty much on. Yeah, we're kind of on the same page with the homelessness too, right?
Yeah.
Like
I think the homelessness issue is you know, public and safety hazard.
No shit.
You know?
Yeah.
So, you know, we agree on most of the things. Maybe even defunding the police, but maybe even the way we would go about holding the police accountable might be a little bit different. COVID maybe a little.
I think
bit
COVID.
different.
The one thing we disagree on is COVID.
Right.
But we don't. But even the way in which we disagree on COVID, we also understand the need for a middle ground, and there's just extremism on both sides of the equation.
Yes,
and that's not
I
good or
agree.
healthy. And we need a common sense middle ground. We need to have a common sense discussion on social distancing, on mask wearing, on when you wear the mask and when you don't wear the mask, on you know, on how do you keep the economy open while also preserving public health? Mm-hmm. How do you preserve public health while also preserving personal liberties? We need these open discussions, and I feel very confident in Casey's ability to recognize that and facilitate those open discussions.
Right. Well, it's all about listening. You know, being open, listening to people, listening to both sides, and just using your best judgment. Like, I mean, like we don't agree on COVID, but we can at least agree that it exists, right?
We agree that it exists.
It exists. It's out there, and maybe about, you know, we don't agree about social distancing or wearing the mask too often or being told what to do. I think the issue is that you want to keep your liberty as an American.
Yeah.
As a person, you don't want to be told what to do. You don't want, you know, you want to be a free spirit, which is the American way, and I agree. But at the same time, you know, we have to be also American and be conscious and be, you know, loving and caring about our family members,
other Americans,
and other Americans, and so, you know, and I think that the practices that we're doing with COVID, we should have been doing already, keeping our restaurants extra clean, keeping our grocery stores extra clean, people wearing masks, you know, because I used to see people like go to a buffet and just be like breathing on the glass, and I just like, oh my gosh, like, you know, like, come on, like, keep your distance, keep, you know, be respectful of other people.
So that being said, I think that there are certain times when you should wear a mask and when you shouldn't. Like maybe when you're at a buffet, you probably should just wear a mask at a buffet for the sake of the food. For the sake of the food.
Yeah.
Right.
You know,
for the sake of the food, or if you go to a hardware store, wear a mask, because that's probably for your own health, because there's so much shit you're breathing in at a hardware store.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
People in the rest of the world, really, the rest of the world has been wearing masks.
Yeah, but I don't want to be
it's nothing new,
like the rest of the world in that department. I think that too much about mask wearing is a communication barrier too.
Yeah, true. And it also could be, you know, a health issue. You know, your respiratory system is not functioning as well. You know, so
Anthony Fauci wrote a paper like in 2008 about the swine flu, and said that the biggest it was either SARS or the swine flu, one of the two. And he said it was about SARS, and he said that like the biggest death complications were resulted from bacterial pneumonia.
Huh. Interesting. So bacteria that's being stored on your mask.
Potentially, yeah. I mean, it didn't say directly, but that's kind of something that should be considered and thought about.
Right. Yeah. For sure.
So you have to, like, there are, you know, times to wear a mask, times not to wear a mask,
and also the right type of mask.
And the right type of mask.
Because I feel like there's a lot of misinformation about like the kind of mask that you have on, the one that's like, you know, first they were saying no, those are spreading it more, and now they're saying no, that those are actually protective. And then these masks that I have on, they're saying that these don't work as well. But I mean, I think you just have to, you know, go with it on your own for now, because there's not a solidified set of rules and guidelines. I feel like we're all over the place. And also too, with these PPE, this is one thing that's been getting to me is, I mean, this is like crazy, is that a lot of the candidates out here have been doing these huge PPE distributions with no regulation. Like, they're not health officials. Like, they're just regular people out there distributing other health items, like unregulated. Like, you know, telling how many more people that you're getting sick by doing that, you know?
Yeah, it doesn't seem very healthy, right? Like,
no, man,
if you're going to touch PPE and distribute it on a wide scale, you should have someone who knows about public health.
Or you should be like a licensed health official to do that kind of stuff, not just the candidates that wants to get their name out there. And that's what I've been seeing.
Yeah, people are definitely doing it. Or people are taking selfies with their mask on. Like, why are you taking a selfie by yourself with a mask on? That there's no reason for you to wear that mask while you're walking your dog.
True.
You know what I mean? Or there's no reason for it. Just people need to just be honest about all this stuff.
Right,
also,
right.
I just want to clarify this too. Like, I'm not like a full-blown anti-masker, okay?
Right.
I'm not, all right? But I do think that prolonged mask wearing, there needs to be a discussion on prolonged mask wearing and when to wear a mask and when not to wear a mask.
Right.
And it has to be an honest discussion. You know, I was even, when I did my finance stuff and I handed in my papers, people were in their desks with a closed door, right? In their own office with a mask on in their own office. Like, there is
you don't like whenever people are in like their car, or like couples who are in their car.
So people do that because they're just so used to and so conditioned to always wearing the mask.
True.
And that's another problem too.
Conditioning.
That's
like,
that's another problem.
Not using your own free will, your own mind.
That's another problem.
And I get that stuff. You know, I get that stuff. But just me, I think the reason why I've been so avid about it is because I'm a family man. I have a newborn baby. You know, and and I know for a fact that something out there, whether it's COVID, something out there is getting people sick, right? Yeah. We can agree on that.
Something is getting people sick.
If there's any chance of me catching that, like, I don't even want to put my daughter at risk.
You don't want to do that.
I just don't even want to risk it at all.
That's very commendable.
And people have passed away. You know, people that I looked up to, mentors. You know, people have passed away from it, even though they might have been ill already, but still, it exacerbated the issue. And it's just a sign. It's just respect.
Yeah,
you know, respect for other people.
Speaking of respect, though, one of the things I really like about you is that you've never made me do anything while I've been helping you. Yeah. You've never made me do anything that I didn't want to do.
No.
You know, if I didn't want to wear, if I didn't want to wear a mask at certain periods of time, you never told me to. You've never once told me to put a mask on.
No, even though you're not to walk in people's yards. I think that's
that was it. You told me not to walk in people's grass.
That's the only thing I've told you to do. But I mean, that's also another thing, because that's
common sense.
You know,
that's common sense.
That's just good old Americans don't let you walk in the property.
Yeah. No, you're right. Yeah. That's I gotta work on.
That's
I gotta work on that.
I can tell you. I gotta work on that. But yeah, man. Yeah, of course. You know, because it's a choice. We live in America. We live in one of the greatest countries in the world. It's all about free choice. So if I want to wear a mask, why are you going to judge me for wearing a mask? If you don't want to wear a mask, you don't have to wear a mask. But don't look down on me for wanting to wear a mask, because I'm an American. I have a choice. I can do it.
Exactly.
You know?
And I won't. I think that there needs to be that middle ground.
Right.
Because if you feel comfortable wearing one, sure. Right. And if you don't, Well, let's talk about when you should wear one.
Right, and that's what I think that goes back to just having a set guideline. There's no, it's just like it's too much of a free for all out there.
Yeah, and
like
then,
the PPE distributions, people handing out masks, people like wearing masks in certain places and not wearing.
yeah,
you know,
and then our public officials who tell us to wear masks, like Mayor Adler, are seen photographed without their mask on at restaurants. So, when you're doing that, when it's rules for thee and not for me, what do you think people are going to tell you? Or when these people are trying to nanny you and legislate these, legislate these rules,
right?
But they're not helping your small business, or they're literally seeming like they're taking away from our culture while adding to their real estate interests.
Right.
Well, of course, there's going to be a backlash. Like, what do you expect? What do you expect?
Right. It's I mean, it's an interesting subject, and it's something that's probably won't be solved or won't be, we won't come to a common ground for a while until we find out some more facts. Because, like I said, just misinformation, not a set guideline about how we're gonna interact with each other, and just
another thing too, with this whole mask wearing stuff, is that all these like liberal democratic socialists and whatnot, they talk like a big game about worker rights and everything. None of them are like lobbying or advocating for higher pay because you have to wear a mask all day.
Yeah, true.
Like,
yeah, I mean it's harder work. That was going back to what I was talking about wearing a mask and it hampering your respiratory system, right? Because whenever you're putting the mask on, you're not breathing fully. You're not inhaling oxygen fully. You're not exhaling carbon dioxide fully.
Yeah,
either.
you're inhaling CO2. That's really bad.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, man. It's, again, this is such a new thing to us. It's not, it's sort of
you're a
kind
pro
of foreign,
boxer. You're a pro boxer.
Mm-hmm.
Have you gone running with your mask on?
It's funny, man. There used to be this thing when at the tail end of my career. There was these oxygen masks.
Oh, I remember those.
These high level.
I remember those.
And I used to just look at people like, man, that is just so dumb, man. Just run faster. Just run harder. Like, you don't need that to get in shape. Like, but it will hamper your breathing. But I mean, no, I've never run with that. I've never run with the mask on. I never run with headphones on. I used to the thing that I would only use to help me in training would be like I would wear a sweater to make me sweat more.
Well, because you have to make weight and stuff, right?
Yeah, or just to make it harder on yourself. You train harder, you practice harder, then the fight's just that much easier.
I try not to run with.
And it's never an easy fight. I don't ever say
no,
you can just make it easier on yourself by training right, eating right. Making the weight right.
Yeah.
You can make it easier on yourself.
I've had a couple of fights myself, not nearly on Casey's level at all. But when I was training for fights, I used to not run with headphones either.
Right.
And I'll tell you why.
Mm-hmm.
And I just felt like you just wanted to make it as awful as possible.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's going to simulate what the fight's going to be like, and the fight's going to suck. And if you have music on, you're not really thinking about what you're doing with it, and it makes the workout easier. And
exactly,
that's that
you're zoning
cheating,
out.
You're cheating yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Of the experience, and the more awfulness you experience while you're training, the less awful your fight is going to be.
Yes, exactly. So that goes back to me being a kid, and wanting to watching Rocky. You watch Rocky, and there's music always playing in the there's always music playing in the training sessions, but that's the movies, right?
Yeah.
So whenever I was training, my dad, who was my coach, my lifelong coach, who was also a Marine, who trained me like a Marine, like from day one, from a little kid up, like so. Like it was really strict, and no music, no music, no girls, no distractions. So, and I just got used to it, and I was successful. I was 24-1, reached top 5 in the nation, top 25 in the world. Got signed up with a major company, and all of that because it was, it was really strict, and it was the right way. It was realistic. It wasn't Rocky movies. We weren't training like Rocky movies. It wasn't all glorified. It was like real nitty gritty. It was real nitty gritty type stuff,
Boxing is a hard sport.
Very hard sport. It's scientifically proven to be the most difficult activity in the world, aside from gymnastics, I believe.
You think gymnastics? I don't know. There
dude,
are definitely bull riding. Bull riding. Bull riding. I think like a high level wrestling. I think any kind of combat sport is going to be they're so similar, and they're so difficult.
MMA
so
too.
many,
MMA is very difficult. It's very taxing physically
because you're doing all these martial arts.
Yeah.
And if you want to fight or you want to fight seriously, your sparring partners are going to be elite your sparring partners are people like you. So it's like you're getting beat up by everybody in their specialty.
I used to watch Anderson Silva videos, and he used to go to the LA
LA boxing.
the wild card boxing.
Yeah, not LA boxing with Freddie Roach.
Yeah. He used to spar all kinds of world class people, and and they'd be tearing them up. But he'd be in there, man. He'd be like, he'd be giving it back to him, and that's what it takes to be a world class fighter at any level. You have to do what's uncomfortable. And you have to take yourself to levels that you don't want to go to, and that's what it takes.
And you really got to put your ego aside, especially in a sport like MMA, because with sport like MMA, it really makes you realize how bad you are at everything. Because there's really no other way around it. Because you have to be well-rounded in order to do that, right? And if you're going to be well-rounded, you're sacrificing time that you spend from a specific sport.
True.
Like most world-class jiu-jitsu guys, all they do is jiu-jitsu. Most world-class boxers, all they do is box.
Right.
Most world-class Muay Thai fighters, all they do is kickbox. Most world-class wrestlers, all they're doing is wrestling. And then when you have to split your time up between 4 different martial arts, you're not going to be. It's going to be very difficult for you to be top notch at one of those, and in order for you to be at the top of your level, you have to train with people who are top notch at their specific skill. So you're always getting beaten up. You know what I mean? When you're doing MMA, you're just getting your ass kicked all the time.
With MMA, I think what makes people successful is that they work on their strengths, right? They work on their strengths and they manage their weaknesses. And that's what's interesting to me about MMA matchups is like there'll be a boxer in there going in there with the wrestler, and the wrestler's main focus is to get him on the ground. And the main focus on the boxer side or the stand-up guys is to stand up and box them, right? So it's a tactical game. It's an interesting sport, and something I would probably never do because I'm a boxing purist. I love boxing, and it's really it's not brutal, but it's just a different game. It's a different sport. It's something that I wouldn't do because I'm just not an MMA fighter. I'm a boxer.
You just don't love it. You just don't love it.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. And you can't. Yeah, and if you're gonna do something like that, you have to absolutely love it.
You have to love it.
You have to be full in it. And my thing was just boxing. I was full on. I mean, from the age of 5 years old, till I was 17, I had 110 amateur fights. And then from 17 to 27, for over a 10-year professional career, I had 25 fights. I lost once, and even that loss was questionable. It was in Vegas. It was it got stopped on cuts on a headbutt, and they went to the scorecards, and I wasn't up.
You ever thought about like coaching fighters?
Yeah, I mean I love coaching. I coach kids. I've coached kids before, and that's where I would focus at coaching kids because that was like my thing growing up here in Austin. That's what I had the most awesome childhood. In my, for me, I loved it. I loved my childhood. I used to travel all around Texas, and it came from, boxing. I experienced things that I would have never experienced before if it wasn't for boxing. And it all came from the Austin Parks and Rec Department, which is, something that needs to be also another place that needs to be well funded, and also came from the Police Activities League. Yeah,
they're trying to cut funding for that, which makes a lot of these super left-wing activists don't understand that.
Yeah, right, and that's unfortunate. We have good police officers, we have bad police officers, but we have awesome programs for kids that bridge the gap between the community. And if we defund our police department, then those bridges are going to be toppled, and they're not going to be there, and they're not going to help people like myself advance and educate.
And you
themselves.
Also create more crime, especially with the homeless stuff. I was I don't know if you saw my episode, but I had Morgan Witt on, who's a candidate for District 7. And Morgan Witt, she was super cool. There's stuff we agree on, stuff we disagree on.
Right.
But she was pretty receptive, even though I think there were certain things that I was talking to her about that she didn't really. They were just novel ideas because she's very used to being in an echo chamber and whatnot, But she was receptive to listening and stuff, which was pretty commendable. But one of the things I was talking to her about was the importance of having our police officers do jiu-jitsu on a consistent basis.
Yeah. So they're more confident in themselves.
Well, you're more confident in yourself, and you know how to handle stress. That you talk about de-escalation. Right. And the only way that you can de-escalate a stressful situation is for you to be the only person who's calm. The only way to de-escalate a stressful situation is to be calm in a stressful situation.
But that's also easier said than done. These police officers are experiencing some very high trauma stuff every day.
Shit.
And it's like stuff that's inhumane, stuff that's you're not supposed to to on the daily basis.
Well, that's why you got to roll into a combat sport because that helps you process that.
True,
it's not a cure.
I don't care any sport. I don't care how stressful it is. It's not going to prepare you to be a police officer.
Nothing does. But I'll tell you
to view those things that they see. I was on the campaign trail the other day, and I ran to a couple, an older couple, and their son just so happened to be there. And he's born and raised here in Austin. He was an APD officer, and he was telling us, man, they experience and they see some crazy things. Children's feet being burned. Dead bodies, just stuff that you can't prepare for.
Right.
You should. It's not. No human can prepare for it.
But that's why you have to train. Sorry, I didn't interrupt you. But that's why you have to train, and that's why you have to be doing a combat sport like that to help even give you a fighting chance at managing the stress.
Right.
That's why
true.
you have to do it.
Yeah, true. I agree. And also it'll be like, it'll give you the confidence to approach situations with more zeal, I guess, more, I don't know how would you say it, just overall confidence.
You're just more confident. You're calm.
Mm-hmm.
I bet you. I'm sure just from your professional boxing experience, I'm sure you've de-escalated.
I de-escalate
more
people
fights
all
than
the
you
time.
all the time without raising your voice ever.
Not just de-escalating like fights, but like just de-escalating people in general. Like whenever we don't agree on something, like for example, there's people on my team that didn't agree with me not wanting to defund the police, and they were like, "Well, how could you feel that way? Think about where we come from." And it's true, because we do need police reform. Like people in my community are targeted by police, or they're mistreated by police all the time.
Yeah.
But that still doesn't mean that we don't need a well-funded. Because I was just trying to think outside of the box, think abstractly. Why do we need a well-funded police force? Well, one, they're always stressed, and if we defund the police, then that means there's going to be less police on per shift. And if there's less police per shift, that means they're going to be more stressed. And if they come into interaction stressed into interact with us as overly stressed, then that means there's more room for conflict.
Yeah,
especially
if they think that you're the ones who caused the stress that they're dealing with.
Right, because he was that brings up another point, that the APD officer that was born and raised here, he says, whenever they get calls, it's not for something good. Whenever the police get called, it's never for something good. It's never like, hey, come over here and I saved a baby already, or I did something. When the police get called, it's for something that they need to solve, or that they need to work on, and it's usually negative, and they're already in that red zone. So, and I think that just goes back to just us understanding the police, being, interacting more with the police, and having more community engagement, and they need to be well funded to do that.
Yeah, and I think that they well funded, better trained. I think and then they have to be accountable meaningfully.
Accountable.
Me and Gary were talking
sides.
about how if there's a shooting or if there's a police misconduct, and all fines and whatnot from the police department, they should just be taken out of the pension fund.
Yeah,
just take it out of the pension instead of have it be a taxpayer thing.
Yeah, I had an idea. Well, not me, but some people on my team, and we agreed on it, and we came up with it. And having the police take out personal liability insurance, similar to malpractice insurance by doctors, because police handle our lives just like doctors. And even more so, even more intimately. So if they make a mistake, that would weed out bad cops automatically.
Yeah.
So and then if they have personal liability insurance, and if they lose that insurance, then they can't just go to another police force somewhere else. And if they make a mistake, and hopefully not, they don't ever kill anybody unjustifiably. But if they do, like you said, it's not coming out of the text, because whenever that happens, like for example, whenever Mike Ramos passed away, RIP Mike Ramos, that was unfortunate. That should not have happened. Yeah. The police, didn't know how to handle the situation. It might have been a young police officer. I don't know the details of it, but the whole situation was just wrong, and and it was unfortunate because we lost an invaluable life and a person, and then on top of that, if the city is sued by the family, then we experience a double loss because we're paying for it, the taxpayers, right?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that seems like a pretty reasonable thing that we should be doing immediately, and
Right.
I'm surprised at our city council when they had this meeting, they didn't just do that right off the bat.
Well, the city council is disconnected.
They're disconnected.
They're disconnected, and they're not really thinking for themselves. They're following national trends, and they're not looking at us right here directly. What kind of police force do we have in Austin, Texas? And we actually have people that are born and raised here. Like one of my cousins, my first cousin, Dan. I won't say his name, but my first cousin is a rookie APD officer. And he just made the last cadet class.
Congrats!
He's a really good dude. He's really good. He wants to serve and protect our community. He's not out there to kill his own people. Yeah. And that's what I want. I want us to be so close to the police force.
Hey, tell them to come to 10th Planet, man. We offer discounts for law enforcement. So
I'll let them know, man. But that's what I want. I want us to be policing ourselves. And if we police ourselves, there's going to be less room for conflict. There's going to be less killings, unjustified killings, and hopefully killings overall, because they're just going to, I think that if your friends run into you and they pull you over for something and it's your friend, there's going to be almost zero conflict, and then also, too, you're going to hold yourself accountable. If you're, a citizen who might not be doing the right thing and you see your friends out there working hard, or your family members out there working hard, you're going to want to be more understanding. You're gonna want to do the right thing. You're gonna want to be a better citizen, and you're just gonna want to be, just be better overall. I think.
No, there's no argument with that. Another dangerous thing too about the defunding stuff is that when you combine it with the urban camping,
Yeah.
you can. I mean, and look, Austin is still very safe compared to other cities, and I still feel very
And that's what I was.
safe
That's
in Austin.
right. Yeah.
It's still safe.
We're
You gotta
following
be-
national trends. We're
Yeah,
following like
yeah.
we're acting like we're New York City or L.A., but we're Austin, Texas.
No, we're
one of
very
the friendliest,
safe. We are
safest cities.
a very friendly and a very safe city, but
It's
the
becoming
stuff
less and less that way,
Well,
though.
well, the stuff that we're doing has can jeopardize that and jeopardize it very quickly.
Yes.
Because if you allow urban camping, right?
Mhm.
Like I work downtown, I see a lot of this
Yeah.
stuff. Like, what do the majority of the people that are out in these tents have?
Yeah.
Drug problems,
mental
right?
issue, mental health issues, and
drug
that's the thing. You don't want to dehumanize
No, you don't,
folks
but you gotta
because
be-
you just got to be reasonable because they're people too. They have mental health issues. They have drug rehabilitation issues. A lot of them probably come from poverty, or maybe not have given the right opportunity to succeed
No,
or to advance and educate
I
themselves.
agree with everything you're saying.
Yeah.
But I agree with everything you're saying. But the fact that remains is that with all that you just mentioned,
Right.
all super valid stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of the people that you see downtown living in these tents, especially the ones that are packed out in the tents, a lot of the guys who are packed out in the tents, they're not utilizing the mobile loaves and fishes and like the job placement resources that are just urban camping.
Yeah.
A lot of them have drug problems.
Yeah. True.
A lot. And,
True.
And if
And a
you're
lot of
gonna
them are not from
allow-
Austin either.
A lot of them aren't.
A lot
from-
of people,
yeah.
whenever
But-
there's there's homeless networks out there that whenever they hear of a city lifting a public camping ban, oh man, it's a homeless festival.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you see it. It's like
What kind of networks?
word of mouth. Word of mouth.
A lot of them have cell phones too.
Yeah, true. Yeah, they have cell phones. I've seen it. I've seen posts on Facebook. Hey, they're giving away free stuff over here, or they're doing this over here, and and they flock to it. And
Yeah.
and you can't blame people for wanting to get resources, but let's at least if you're going to be reaping the benefits of our city and the growth of our city, and you're going to be receiving handouts, at least try to work your way out of it.
Right.
Try to seek drug rehabilitation, seek mental health care, seek ways to advance yourself, not just plot and just stay there and stay
but
stagnant.
this is also like a drug dealer's wet dream.
True.
This is a
true.
drug dealer's wet dream,
Yeah.
Casey, because if you see a bunch of people who probably have drug problems that are like literally camping out in the streets and can do it whenever they want, if you're a drug dealer and you're in a place like Austin where it's kind of a soft city,
Yeah.
you could make a killing. And
Yeah.
then what happens, look, a whole bunch of homeless people, the word's out that this is the place to go if you're homeless. Well,
Mm-hmm.
pretty soon the word's going to be out that this is the place to go if you want to be a drug dealer and sell to homeless people. And then, like, other drug dealers are going to compete with each other.
Well,
You're going
once
to have
again,
you're going to have
yeah.
rival gangs fighting with each
Yeah.
other, and then you're going to have a defunded and understaffed police department
Yeah.
to deal with this. With a guy like Jose Garza, who's probably going to get elected DA, who's not going to prosecute any of this stuff. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what do you think is going to what do you think is going to happen in the next 4 to 8 years
Yeah.
if this trend continues at the rate that it's going?
True. I mean, like I said, we're following national trends. Just like they want to turn us into New York City,
Yeah, it's
L.A.
bad. I grew up in New York
You
City.
know,
I left
yeah.
there for a reason.
Yeah, and nothing against New York City. I'm sure there's great people there, but at the same time, there's also lots of crime, lots of things, lots of bad things going on, and that's just not what we are as Austin, Texas. Which is one reason why I wore the cowboy hat and my boots today to remind people where we're at.
Dude, you look great.
I appreciate it, man. I appreciate
I wore
it.
a shirt too. I wore a
Appreciate
Casey
it, man.
Ramos
Appreciate
for
that.
D2 because we need representation here
Yeah.
in Austin. I honestly, another reason why I felt so comfortable dropping out of this race for Casey is because I genuinely felt like I was being represented. Like I could actually focus on what I want to focus on because I know that there will be an elected official that will represent my concerns legitimately, and B, be accessible and allow me to be active and involved and have my voice not only be heard but
Yes.
even be more amplified. Because I feel like since I've dropped out, my voice and everything that I've been saying has gone even more amplified than it was when I was an active candidate.
Yeah, true, man, true. Because people saw that you did. They feel that you did the right thing. You made the right move, and they commended you for it, and I commend you for it. When we first sat down and talked, I didn't even think I was even going to ask you to do what you did. Right? Because you invited me. You called me, said, "Hey, man, let's sit down and talk. Let's talk about some things." I said, "All right, man. I'll give him a chance. I'll sit down.
Yeah.
Because I liked what you were saying, and I wanted to discuss more about a lot of our what we agree on, what we don't agree on, and something just came over me, man. I just sat down and I said, I need to ask this guy to drop out of the race and fully support me, because I was like, what is it going to take for me to actually win? Like, am I just going to run, or are we just going to run against each other and take votes from each other? Or what is it going to take for me to actually win?
Yeah, because you don't want to be District 10. District 10 is a fucking shit show because
too many people, too many people running and not enough legitimate people running, in my opinion. A lot of citywide, lots of candidates that have no business running. But you can't knock anybody for it. We're in America.
Yeah.
Right?
No, anyway,
I mean, and it takes, I shouldn't have said that they have no business running, because anybody can, right?
Anybody can run.
Anybody can run, man. And I don't want, because you don't want to discount somebody like myself who doesn't.
Yeah, somebody can say that about us too.
Exactly. And that's not right. But what I meant to say is, I guess be more conscious, right? Be more active. Think about what you're doing before you do it. And why are you running? Like I asked you, why are you running? What do you want to do? What's your end result? Why do you want to, what do you want to accomplish out of running? And I think that we answered it.
Yeah,
we want true change. We want somebody to be elected. We want, like ourselves, somebody who agrees with the people, who's open to the people. And, I think we're here. We're on our way.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, listen, like the reason I was running is it's just one sentence. Okay.
Right.
I just want to be able to live in Austin.
Yes.
That's the only reason.
Yes.
That's the only reason I'm running, is because I just want to be able to live here. I love it
True,
here.
man. Same
this place
thing.
is great. It's super accepting. You're allowed to function and be your own entity. There are a million opportunities here to do a lot of awesome things. And it is disappointing that like a lot of that are citywide narrative paints a dark picture about how oppressed and how hard it is for people and how everyone's struggling and this and that. And I'm like, yeah, that's true, and we need to fix certain things, but
they make it harder.
They're
making it harder.
You're making it harder.
The people say that they're so-called progressives that, the
fake
people are struggling out here, and people are, people are struggling hard, but there's a lot of people like myself who are doing well, who own homes and who have disposable income. But it's becoming increasingly harder for them to be able to maintain that.
Exactly, because of the policies that they're implementing.
Right.
But what I'm saying though is that like there are a lot of opportunities to do really well here in Austin, and I want those opportunities to continue to exist. And I feel like they were being very quickly taken away, especially in light of the pandemic.
Right.
Because I wasn't going to run if it wasn't for this pandemic. I had no interest in this at all. Mm-hmm. I did the mayor stuff; it was cool, but I was done with it. I really didn't want to do any of that again.
Right.
But I just want to be able to live in Austin, and because this is a great city, and I've done really well for myself here, just being a regular, average, ordinary guy. And it is disappointing that a lot of people within our city government, or the cool narrative amongst like our city council candidates, is that Austin is really hard and it's really oppressive and everybody's struggling, and the only reason you're successful is because you have privilege. And I'm like, no, that's living in Austin is the privilege.
Yeah,
and you should take advantage of it.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean, I feel like I'm a prime example. I come from the struggle. I come from poverty, but I was able to manage my way out of it because of opportunities that were provided by the city, Austin Parks and Recs, the Police Activities League. All these experiences that helped me become a professional boxer and pay for my education and advance and educate myself.
So let's we're gonna pivot.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about these the land code. Because so one of the things that a lot of y'all might not be aware of is that Casey, not only was he an elite pro boxer, but Casey also used a lot of his fight money, and he's gotten some pretty good paydays, right?
Yeah, I've got some pretty good. I mean, as
paydays, but
as a professional, it took a while.
It took a while.
And
I think he was underpaid, and I think that to be honest, I saw some of your fights, and you really should have been on HBO. There was probably some issues with that we could talk about maybe for like a follow-up episode that's nothing to do with the elections. Mm-hmm. But I saw some fights. And I was like, holy shit, dude, this guy should be on Showtime.
Yeah, well, I was on Showtime.
I didn't know. Okay,
so
okay.
I did pretty well. I did pretty well for myself, considering coming from where I came from, being a club level boxer. But I never had club level talent.
Oh,
right?
No.
So that was the thing. So a lot of times fighters fall through the cracks. But if you're good enough, and if you fight hard enough, and if you're just keep on going, you'll get discovered. You'll get and that's what happened to me. I was an elite. I had elite skills, but I wasn't noticed.
Yes,
right? I wasn't like this highly touted amateur. Even though I did have a good record, I was 95-15.
That's pretty good.
As an amateur, went to numerous national tournaments. Never won a national tournament, which is why I wasn't highly touted and highly recruited by promoters coming out. So I had to just start from the ground up. Club level shows, fighting all around Texas, fighting in the valley, fighting in bars, fighting in a tent somewhere, and fighting outside on the baseball field, and it took a while. But after a while, man, the skills spoke for themselves. The cream rises to the top.
Right. So there's another thing that I actually just realized that I wanted to bring up.
Yeah.
You still talk to James Kirkland?
Oh yeah, man, that's my brother. I mean, that's my brother.
I
man.
know that a lot of people don't know that, but you guys boxed and came up together, right?
Yeah, man, out of the Metropolis Boxing Center. I mean, the Metropolis Recreation Center, which had a room. It was literally a room, like the size of this square footage right here, and had a little bitty ring, not even a full size ring. Had 4 bags, a speed bag, and it had 3 coaches. Okay. And one of those coaches was Donald Billingsley. And he was the head coach, and he sort of mentored my dad, mentored my uncle, mentored some of the other coaches on how to be coaches. And man, I mean, changed my life, and it was a great experience.
But anyway, where I was getting with this, and I saw his Canelo fight, and that was a monster fight.
Well, that wasn't the James Kirkland. That was not the James Kirkland that we know, and that we know had the skills he had. If James Kirkland would have kept the path and stayed strong and do what he was supposed to be doing. In my opinion, we're all fighters, man. We're not perfect. We're all humans. But that was not the James Kirkland that I know. And if there was the James Kirkland that I know, it probably would have knocked Canelo out. Straight up. I mean, this dude was a monster growing up. I mean, and he used to be a boxer, too. He used to be like a skillful soiree dancer type boxer. And, when he became a professional, he just started knocking people out. And when we start knocking people out, you just start going for it every time. And he just sort of kind of changed his style. And, it just... it was unfortunate the way he took that loss. I was there. I was ringside. And I still support him. I supported him all the way. I still support him. That's my brother. I always love him. He made a little comeback. I commentated some of his fights on his comeback at the Irwin Center and at the Alamo Dome. And, that's my brother. That's always going to be my brother. I love him. And, we came up together. And the experiences that we had as young people were invaluable and helped us make it out. Because, again, he comes from poverty. I come from poverty. So we come from nothing. We made something out of nothing. And you can't knock somebody for doing
100%.
that.
So, but here's the thing, though, right? Like, do you know if and you're still in touch with James Kirkland right now?
Yeah, I can reach out to him.
Is he doing all right? Like, how's he doing? Is he doing okay financially now?
He's got a house, man. He's got a house. He's got a car. His house is paid off. He just made a comeback. Like I said, he had 2 comeback fights. One at the Frank Irwin Center, one at the Alamo Dome last year. He's got a good management team and Davies Entertainment. So he's doing good, man. He's all right. He's doing good.
But he's also – so here's another thing, too. And one of the things I talked about was the importance of teaching financial literacy in boys and girls clubs and within underfunded communities.
True.
And then you take a guy like James Kirkland who's made millions of dollars.
Yeah.
This guy's made millions of dollars throughout his career.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine if somebody was teaching James Kirkland at the age of like 5 and onwards how to read a balance sheet or an income statement or what a cash flow statement or what a PE ratio is.
Let me tell you something, man. That's why this may be why we disagree on some things, because whenever you come from poverty, you're so far from that.
Exactly. That's why it's got to be taught in the schools, and that's why people should go into these clubs and tell people that this stuff exists. Like you just said, you're so far from that because you didn't even know that something like that even exists.
Yeah.
So why aren't we subsidizing programs to get people in those communities to understand, hey, this exists? Because imagine if somebody like that learned all of these, like had a working knowledge of financial terminology, the millions of dollars he made could have turned into hundreds of millions of dollars, and that could have really been a whole game changer, even in your own community.
Yeah, true. Especially where he comes from. He comes from the east side, northeast side airport. We grew up in a church off of 16th and Harvey, right off of airport, and that's a heavily gentrified area. And somebody like himself, if he would have made it to the top, educated himself a little more, been a little more financially stable, he could have given back to his community a little more. But again, man, I mean, you can't knock the dude. I mean, when you come from nothing, you make it and you make all this money, like what are you supposed to do? What would you do?
No, I get it. I'm not knocking him at all. I'm just throwing out a hypothetical like, wow, look at how many opportunities there are. And imagine if we taught financial literacy in those communities, there's always 1 or 2 people in those communities who makes it big.
Yeah.
And the person who makes it big, if they get that knowledge, it will literally transform the community.
Yeah.
And people that's the
there's another dude. There's another boxer
actually
that comes from that comes from our team. So it was me. It was all my brothers, most of my cousins, and it was James Kirkland and another dude named Curtis Meeks, who comes from the same neighborhood, went to LBJ High School, and he's wealthy, right? And he took what he made from boxing. He retired, and he just took it and ran with it, and he's doing well for himself. And he gives back to his community. He bought his mom a house. He runs youth football programs. I mean, he does youth sports. He sponsors other young boxers. So I mean, it's there. And he just took a little more initiative to be more financially stable, inform himself on how to be be wealthy and use his money correctly. And so it's there, man. There's examples. There are people there, and myself too.
Yeah.
I didn't just go and make the money that I made with Top Rank and fighting on TV in Vegas and traveling the world for training. I actually spent it on things that were gonna pay back dividends later on, helping start nonprofit organizations, paying for school. So I just didn't squander my money. I actually invested it right.
Yeah, and I know that, and that was the next topic that we're going to talk about.
Right.
So you started 2 organizations. You started Dove Springs Proud, and you helped start Community Not Commodity.
Right.
I want you to talk about both of those organizations. And I'm sitting back, and I'm
yeah, no.
The floor is yours, Casey Ramos.
Yeah. Well, Dove Springs Proud just sort of happened naturally, man, organically. I just was seeking other people out like myself who wanted to give back to the community. I was sort of at reaching the peak of my professional boxing career, and I met a guy named Ricardo Zavala, another man named George Morales, and another guy named Edward Reyes, and we got together and we started. Ricardo Zavala had the idea that we needed to have more accountability in our neighborhood, and we all sat down at the table and we said, well, how do we do that? And Ricardo Zavala said, well, I got this idea. It's called Dove Springs Proud, and it's gonna be a nonprofit organization aimed at advancing and educating the people. And it's gonna hold other nonprofit organizations more accountable. So what was happening is nonprofit organizations were coming into Southeast Austin and making millions of dollars, right? Like in grant funds from like the Michael and Susan Dell Foundation, from Microsoft, Bill Gates, So I mean, they were getting money on our behalf, and they were spending it on our behalf, but there was no results coming from it. And so we wanted to hold those people more accountable, and they didn't like it. They didn't like us as citizens of our own community try to take accountability of our own community. And now, to me, it's probably the most successful nonprofit in Southeast Austin. It gives away thousands of dollars in scholarships. It gives away thousands of dollars in funds for people who are in need, for groceries, for trips, for travel, for anything. You can literally get on there and you can ask a question. Like, for example, the other day, somebody who's from Dove Springs moved back to Mexico, and he wants to open up a gym in Mexico named after Dove Springs Proud. And he wrote the head founder, Ricardo Zavala, and he put it up to a vote, like America, right? We vote on it, and people voted yes to give them funds to help them start a gym down there in Mexico, to help the underprivileged kids down there. So it's a great program. It's very successful, and I tip my hat to Ricardo Zavala for taking it, running with it, and building it into something that's we probably would have, we imagined it, we wanted it, but something that we just maybe not have thought was attainable. Because all kinds of politicians get back to it. They, whenever you run for city council or you run for anything in office, you're donating to Dove Springs Proud.
They had me ask a bunch of questions, and I was just like, well, I don't know if I could donate because I just don't know how much money I'm going to get or what's going to happen. But I've looked into it. It seems like a very good organization, and it seems like it's an organization where the people on the board have agency over where the money gets spent, and there's a lot of transparency.
Yes.
And like when you have like the Habitat for Humanities and the Greg Andersons, and everyone thinks like, oh, Habitat, that's great, but there's no transparency or accountability for how that money gets spent. It could be spent on just more office supplies or another office, or like it could be spent hiring your buddy to get a cush job to do God knows what. And
Habitat for Humanity used to be a really great organization. It's something that I used to volunteer when I was a kid, and my mom was a big advocate of, and it just sort of got taken over by these neoliberal socialists, in my opinion, and they want to cramp people into a little space, and they want to say that, well, that's the only place that you can live. You can only live in a little apartment. You can't live in a full single family home, and that's not right. That's un-American. If you want to help people, then help people live where they want to live. If they want to live in a single family home with a yard and a fence, then help them out. Don't just say, oh, I'm going to build these condos and we're going to help more people, which is true. You can help more people, but I mean, I don't think as people we're supposed to live in a one-room condo.
No, that's like some Agenda 2030 stuff that you don't want coming to fruition. Not to sound like Alex Jones or anything, but it's you don't want that. You want to do your best to avoid that as much as possible.
Yeah.
And you want people to have space, and you want people to have their homes, and you want people to have ownership. And I think
exactly
that
ownership. You can't own a condo. You can't own an apartment.
No, and I think that if developers are going to build, you got to at the very least build rent to own. If you're going to build in accommodated housing, it should just all of it should be rent to own.
Yeah, even if it's a condo or an apartment.
Yeah, just rent to own, and whatever, man. Like if I were running, right, or if I were a public official, hey man, you can get whatever tax break you want as long as the people who are renting out your place have the chance to own it by making XYZ amount of payments.
Right. I agree.
You know what I mean?
agree.
Like as long as people have ownership, because if you don't have ownership over your own land or your own property, you're a lot less likely to be involved. Because when you own something, you have skin in the game.
Right.
And when you have skin in the game, you have things are a lot more at stake for what you want to do.
I agree. That's one of the issues that's going on in our neighborhood in District 2. We have 50% homeowners and 50% renters. So what happens is the homeowners have, take care of their stuff. They're really involved. They really care about their neighborhood. But people who rent, who are coming from out of town or coming from wherever, just rent and they just, let their grass grow and they litter, or they just come in and they don't give back to the community. They're not involved. They're not as involved because they don't have as much at stake.
And they don't understand.
And
they think that they're being progressive because, they voted for Beto or something for Senate or something like that. You know what I mean? Or
Right.
And then these neoliberal politicians who are like expediting all this gentrification and to get all this developer money, they just use stuff like that and co-opt it to get people to vote for displacement.
True.
Like with the whole Prop J thing, 2 years ago there was this item called Proposition J, which gave people an opportunity to vote on the land code.
Right. Yeah.
And
to
then
protest.
and then you know what these urbanists said to stop people from wanting to vote on their own land, on whether or not we're going to have a land code.
Yeah.
On what the land code's going to be. They said, "Don't Trump Austin." Literally what they said. I'm like, it's and that's a problem is when you equate, you're literally equating like Donald Trump with stopping neoliberalism. That's that's a bad.
Yeah. Well,
look,
it's a problem. What we have going on right now. We have people that are saying that they're so-called progressive, but in my opinion, we're being regressive. The city council is actively trying to take away your rights as a citizen. Right now, we have a case going on with community, not commodity. We have litigation going on with some folks that are taking the city to court because they want to have the right to protest zoning changes, which is a major tool in stopping gentrification and in helping people advance and educate themselves. But yet, the city council is saying they were progressive, but they want to take that right away.
Hey, can you explain that a little bit more and also explain community, not commodity, and what the purpose is? And also, you helped write this new land code that should be implemented called the People's Plan. And I want the viewers right now, since we're
I had
live,
some
to
advice.
really,
I want to take full credit for that because there's some really smart, intelligent people that really put their
shout
heart.
out Fred McGee. I
Yeah,
want him
Fred
on the
McGee,
podcast.
Fred McGee
I'm
is
trying to talk to
Fred
him and see
McGee,
what's
Jim
going on with
Duncan,
that.
Susana Almanza, Nelson Linder, Fred Lewis. I mean, some really great, smart, intelligent folks that could really run this city and do some really great things. And they put together this thing called the People's Plan. And it's just a presentation to the city about what the people really want. What do we really want and what do we really need? And we presented it to them, and they're not listening. But as far as the litigation for the protesting zoning, so what's happening right now is Austin is rewriting their land codes. They're swiping the slate clean. And they're taking single family zoning, and they're upzoning it to mixed development use or vertical mixed use or other things that are gonna not be single family homes. It's gonna be apartments, condos, luxury retail in place of those single family homes. And what we're doing is we're taking them to court to be able to protest zoning changes,
Right.
which means that we can protest Code Next, we can protest any rewrite of the land code if we don't see it matches our
Okay.
demographics or what we
Now,
want.
Casey, how is the upzoning going to make the neighborhoods more unaffordable?
Well, it's going to sell to the highest bidder. There's no ordinances on who's gonna be able to buy what because the definition of affordability is completely off. So they come in, right, and they upzone, and they say, well, if we upzone, it's going to be bigger houses, more rooms, or we're going to have more units per lot. But that's sort of kind of tricky, and they say it's basic, simple economics. It's just supply and demand, which is completely ignorant, right? As an economics student who graduated from St. Edward's with an economics degree, that's bogus. Right, because you have if you're an economics major, if you're somebody who's an economist, you know that you not only have supply and demand, you have quantity supplied, quantity demand, and a number of outside other forces that are going to impact the price of homes. Right, so we're no longer competing in the local market. So if we just build as many homes and as many units as possible, the price is still going to rise because we're no longer competing in the local market. There's so much demand; it's almost unlimited here in Austin. That no matter what unit or what size the unit's built, it's always going to go to the highest bidder, and we're going to be priced out.
I can see that, and you'll still have the single family home temporarily, but because of the high cost of these other buildings, and because of who you're going to get to move in,
right?
Taxes are also going to have to go up because they're going to have to be a lot more services. You're going to have to do a lot more to improve the roads.
Right.
They're going to try to build mass transit systems. They're going to have to. There's a lot of stuff they're going to have to subsidize to accommodate the needs of these people that want to still live in luxury.
Right. True.
And that's
they're willing to do it because that's what they do all around Europe. That's what they do all around L.A., New York. San Francisco. They're jam packed in San Francisco. I mean, look at San Francisco. And so that's another thing that's sort of false. That what they're claiming is that density.
Affordability.
Yeah, density means more affordable. But let me tell you, no. You go to some of the most dense places in the world: San Francisco, L.A., New York, Hong Kong, Paris, London. These places are jam packed with people. But guess what? These are the most expensive cities in the world.
People live in cage homes in Hong Kong. I saw a documentary about people living in cage. They have cage homes.
Yeah,
and they're trying to normalize that.
Yeah,
so, yeah,
exactly.
You don't want that to be.
That's what's going back to talking about Habitat for Humanity. They want to make people. They want to jam pack people so close together, and we're going to help more people and do this. But are you really helping people by making them live in smaller spaces, or are you, or like you're saying, are you going to actually do some real damage? Help people by building them a single family home and letting them actually own it, so that way they can benefit from the growth of Austin. And I don't want to. And so that's another misconception about how we feel. Through community, not commodity. We don't want to stop the growth of Austin. We want people to, we want people's, home values to rise. We don't want to decrease their home value. That
doesn't make any sense. Yeah,
no,
you want wealth.
We want it. We want people to build wealth, but we just want it to be done more equitably and equally.
And you want people to have ownership, where they live.
Yes.
And when you're upzoning things and everything's being sold to the highest bidder, there is no rent to own. These developers have no rules to abide by because it's going to become an economic free for all.
Yeah, and that's also another tricky subject because we live in a capitalist society. We live in America.
Capitalism is the best system in the world.
We live in America, and it's if you have the money, it's your right to buy and sell whatever you want.
Agreed.
So
Casey,
it's tricky.
I fully agree with you. It is your right to buy and sell however you want as a firm believer in capitalism. But there's two things, right? So one, the people that are the biggest proponents of this type of runaway capitalism are all calling themselves socialists, which is one of the most dishonest and deceitful and disingenuous things that you could do.
True.
So anytime somebody actually, so that there's that. Right.
Yeah.
So that doesn't add up.
Again, like I said,
it's dishonest.
Progressive. We're not progressive.
We're not progressive. It's a buzzword. It's a neoliberal buzzword.
Yeah. True.
It's a neoliberal buzzword. And then the other, what were we talking? We're talking about the okay. And the other thing is that even in a capitalistic society, the only way a big reason why capitalism has worked for as long as it has, and the reason why it's a good system, is because when people own something, they are active.
Yeah.
And the more people that own stuff, the more you're active to stop capitalism is great, but runaway capitalism is bad.
Yes,
and
I agree.
The more people who are able to participate in capitalism, the less likely you are to facilitate runaway capitalism.
True, and that goes back to what I was saying about us not competing in the same markets anymore. So we need to be able to facilitate where people who are making certain amounts of income are competing with each other. They're competing in their own little market, in their own little capitalist market, and there's people that are living, or making above their means who are competing in their own market. So that just has to be that goes back to the code next or the rewriting of our land codes. We can easily designate areas where people are who make certain incomes, or who make a certain amount of who have a certain amount of wealth. Can compete with each other.
And there's also a correlation between home ownership and local involvement. And Austin's a pretty locally involved city as it is, but it was a lot more locally involved, even when I first moved here. And it was a lot more locally involved, I'm sure, 10, 20 years ago before I was here, when more people were able to actually own homes.
Right. Yes. True. Austin's a very active city. I was talking to a former council member, Jackie Goodman, and she said that she brought up a really good point that people were heavily involved in Austin because there was more owners, there's more homeowners, and there's really smart people too that live in Austin. There's really smart people who know what's going on, and they want to make a true change, and they want to see Austin grow for the better. And they can add to that. They can add. If we just cut off the people and we don't listen to the people, that means we're just cutting off a knowledge base that we don't have, and something that we sorely need, because not every council member has the answers. I don't have all the answers.
No,
you don't have all the answers. Our city council doesn't have all the answers. We need to look to the people for the answers.
Exactly, because I don't know shit, man. I know next to nothing. But the fact of the matter is that a lot of our city council members and our candidates know very little too, but they won't even bother to listen to the people in their district unless it falls in line with what they specifically agree with, and that is dangerous. And
very dangerous. Yeah.
That's why you have these recall petitions circulating around. And to be honest, man, I think that this time it's going to be successful. I think the recall Adler petition is actually going to get the signatures this time.
Maybe, but who we're going to put in his place?
Who
what do we do? So that's
another thing too.
There's a power vacuum there. If Adler gets knocked out of the way, who's to say that just not another person who's going to come in and be even more heavily developer involved?
Well, I think that if enough people sign that petition, they know what they're trying to get rid of, so it'll probably be, let's hope it's someone who's the opposite.
Right.
But you also don't want somebody to be too much the opposite. You don't want some crazy right winger to take his place. That's not going to be good for Austin either.
Yeah, because I've been seeing a lot of things, and whenever so that's where we got to be careful about what we're saying about how we designate affordable housing. Because we're using taxpayers' money to subsidize other people's. There's hardworking middle class folks out there that are not experiencing any subsidies, and they're being left to their own devices. They have to fend for themselves, and they're paying for all of these subsidized housing. They're paying for the affordable housing.
Yeah, because it's a middle class that gets screwed with this tax burden, and then it creates anti-homelessness and stuff like that. And people need to understand why that's the case.
Right.
But here's another thing too, man. Like the soccer stadium. Our city.
Yeah.
We had our city talks so much about affordable housing, but the soccer stadium was literally, it was the #1 designated area for affordable housing in Austin.
Huge swath of land.
And I don't even mind the fact that we're building a stadium, right? But when the guy's paying no taxes, when 85% of the people who have tickets are season ticket holders, when there are little to no opportunities available for everyday Austinites to actually benefit from this stadium, what are you doing? And then you're going to talk to me about affordability?
Yeah.
Really, man? Come on.
I agree, man. A lot of the businesses that are coming in here for free. And we're the fastest growing city, or one of the fastest growing cities in the nation, and we should be able to pay for our own growth. We shouldn't have to rely on the middle class. We should be making these businesses pay for it. These businesses can single-handedly, the developers, the big industries that are coming in here, they could single-handedly solve our affordable housing issue.
Yeah, I agree. And at the very least,
if we charge them, they're going to come here no matter what.
Or just give people ownership.
They're still going to be profitable.
Give people ownership. You say, hey man, build X number of rent to own properties, right? Or build
actually if you're going to come here and develop, actually pay into the and I can't stand the word affordable housing because it's not right. I mean, it should be income based housing, not affordable housing, because the definition of affordability, the way the city houses it, is not affordable at all. 80% of the median family income is close to $77,000, and I don't make $77,000.
No, I don't make it even close.
You don't make $77,000.
Not even close.
Young people like us who are trying to get our foot in and say, don't make that money.
Yeah, and then you also don't want to be building housing projects to compensate for that either.
No, you
that's
don't.
also bad. Yeah, you want
that's
middle class housing.
And that doesn't. That's not affordable. You don't want to just, because you're never gonna own anything if it's from a housing project. You're not gonna own it. You're just gonna live, and you need those because you need a stepping stone for people to work themselves out of poverty, work themselves out of that. You need projects, but you also need some place for them to step up to. And it's just a step here, which is housing projects, and then it's a step up here, which is expensive housing. Yeah. You need something there
something in the middle
for them to build up on.
Yeah.
And that's another buzzword is we need more middle housing. We need more middle housing, but
missing middle. We need the missing.
Yeah, right. But they don't even really know what they're talking about. You need you don't need just one missing. You need like multiple steps in Austin. Because again, people make 30% of the median family income, 40%, 50%, 60%, 70, all the way up.
What do you think about the protests?
Oh man, that's another thing. A lot of the people that are protesting aren't people that are affected. They're people. They're people like myself, for example. I have been, targeted by the police unfairly. Mistreated by the police, and I don't like people speaking on my behalf who have not experienced that. who just see things from the outside. Again, they're watching the national news and they get inspired and they want to go protest.
Well,
and it's
yeah, when you've done nothing meaningful or substantial with your life, and now you all of a sudden are going to feel compelled to want to feel like you're a part of something. That's what it is. It's like when you've been raised on participation trophies.
Yeah, man.
You have a chance to feel like you're doing something important and meaningful, but you're not really, because you're not listening to people like yourself.
Exactly,
and
you're just adding to the problem.
You brought up a really good point too about the whole defund stuff, right?
Yeah.
And you said while I've been helping you, that the police officers have actually been better at their job and have been a lot more empathetic and more understanding since all this stuff has been happening. So I wanted to share that with the class.
I've had a couple of homies, a couple of friends, that might have been doing some questionable things, and I'm not again, man. People have to do what they got to do to survive, but sometimes we have to hold both sides accountable. Like one of my friends was out there, walking around, had a little bit too much to drink, wandered away from the house, and it could have ended up really bad between him and the police. And the police brought him home nice and safe and sound, like a little kid, like a little, hey, let's guide you home. And so the police understand too. The police department understands what's going on, and they understand that they have to hold themselves accountable. They have to understand that we have to hold ourselves accountable too. We need to stop committing petty crimes, driving drunk, stealing things, violent crimes. Where I come from, we have one of the highest violent crime rates, in the city, and people are afraid to talk about these things. So we just, it's not just one-sided, and that's not to say that we don't need police reform either at the national level. And I think that we can be a prime example here in Austin. We can add to that national sentiment, right? We can see, like Austin's doing it. They're interacting. The police and the community are interacting. They're holding each other accountable. And we can follow that trend. So we don't need to follow national trends. We need to set our own trend. That way the nation can follow it.
I agree. I was big on saying that our cops should have EMT basic certifications.
Yeah, man, of course. Yeah, that'd be huge. That'd be huge because, like you've stated before, they're the first responders. They're the first ones on the scene.
Yeah, and it changes the narrative too. Like all of a sudden you see videos of cops saving people instead of shooting them.
Yeah.
Dude, it'll change how we view police. It'll change the dynamic of trust. It'll do a lot of it'll do a lot more. And plus, if you save somebody's life, you're connected to that family forever, and then that family has a resource.
And you know what? And you know what? If we hold each other accountable, the cops might be more lenient on us. They might stop arresting us for little petty stuff, small minor issues.
I think that's going to already happen, though.
And that could be better for both of us. That could be better for the nation. That could be better for us as a society. The police being more lenient on the people.
I think they're going to be more lenient on the people, actually. So did you see me and you were actually on the same podcast. We were both on Brad Swale's The Councilman. And I actually listened to your episode. I really liked it.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
But I saw this episode with an anonymous police officer, Sam. And he talked about how, if businesses were going to be violating the quarantine stuff, right? If that were to come back again, or if a bar decided to just reopen even against the city guidelines, the cops would be like, we're not going to do anything, man. You have the right to own your own business and make a living, and we're not going to violate your constitutional rights under any set of circumstances. But if our police are saying that openly, and granted his voice is muffled to use a different name, but if that's what's being said, and I trust Brad Swale, he seems like a pretty reputable person, right? If that's what the narrative is, there is already becoming a much better shift in policing that we should become more aware of and continue to embrace.
Yeah, I see it, and we just have to be more accepting of each other. I think just as people, I think this is just like a nationwide trend. We're so divided at the top with all this stuff going on between Trump and Biden, and Democrat, Republican. But if we bring ourselves down to earth, right? Let's bring ourselves to the city level. Let's bring ourselves and be humble here. We agree on most things. Security, housing, access to healthcare, access to food, being nice to each other, and being cool with the police. Why would we, this is not the time that we want to separate ourselves from the police. We want to be close to the police department. We want to be so close that we become the police department. The community starts to police itself, less crime, less petty stuff that's going on. And like I said, we're just gonna be better off as a community and as a city.
Yeah, and then the more involved you are, the more you can hold bad cops accountable too.
Yes, so you made a good point. If we keep our police department well funded, then that gives us more leverage to hold them more accountable.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. I think one last thing before we wrap up. One of my concerns about this homeless stuff. Yeah, we got to wrap up soon. But one of the things I'm concerned about with this homeless stuff is the fact that it's kind of being used to expedite gentrification.
True.
Because like, look, our homeless population since this camping stuff, and you brought this up earlier, you know, when an area lifts its camping bans, dude, people flock to it. And when homeless people flock to an area, what do they need? They need housing. Who builds the housing? Developers. The same developers are probably contributing to our like the campaigns of a lot of our council members. So people think it's progressive, but in actuality, it's really just a means to expedite displacement and gentrification.
True. I mean that might be a little far-fetched, but I think it's a tool to get us out of here. I think because I know lots of people that, you know, from where I come from, that are like, yeah, man, if things keep going the way they keep going, man, I'm out of here. You know, I'm gone. Like, I can't take this no more. This city's gone. It's not the same anymore. Yeah. So I think that that sentiment, yes. As far as escalating gentrification, I'm not sure if I can see the correlation quite just yet.
Well,
maybe I'll just look into it a little more.
Because it raises the taxes.
What do you mean?
Like the more homeless people that come, the more you have to pay taxes to like fund all these homeless services.
Yeah.
And then also,
and the middle class pays for it.
Yeah, not to really put a tinfoil hat on, but people can register them to vote.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And then it's like,
we're
building.
I'm a recently I've been a voter registrar before, but for the campaign, I became a voter deputy registrar. And one of the things that they said was you can absolutely register homeless people who do not have a home. You can absolutely register them to vote, and their address can be under the bridge under 35. You just got to write it down, and they got to be able to be found by the person who delivers their mail, and they can be registered to vote. And I think that's awesome. You know, we need more voter participation, and the people who are homeless have a voice too. You know, they're not all, again, we can't just encompass the homeless people all into one group. These are women too. These are children. These are people with drug issues, people who are coming from poverty, mental issues, people who just haven't been given a shot at life. You know, so it's just it's a complicated issue. It's a sticky issue to talk about. But you know, we have to talk about it, because if we don't talk about it, if we don't disagree on things, if we're not conversing, then we're never going to come to a common ground. We're never going to find a common solution.
And the more we're shut down from each other, and the more we're being told we can't, like, you know, go to our jobs, or the more we're being told to stay home because of this whatever virus and whatnot, the more isolated we become, and the less we talk, and the more divided we become. Like, dude, well,
in my opinion, I feel like if we would have just you know, been conscious, been human beings, respectful human beings. This is where me and you kind of sort of like not agreeing on about how to shut down.
I agree with being a respectful human being.
No, I agree too. But what I'm saying is, like, being shut down for so long, right? I feel like if we're gonna shut down, it should have been done in a more like you're saying, in a more conscionable way. And some of us should have respected the rules. You know, just let's let our pride down for a little bit. Let's wear the mask. Let's keep our social distancing. Let's not be out there protesting in the middle of a pandemic.
Exactly. So the same people that are telling us to do all this mask bullshit and to stay home and not go to bars are the same people that were encouraging protesting, which makes no sense, dude.
Our council member was out there. Our District 2 council
Mr.
member.
David Chinken.
No. He's not our council member. He's our candidate. No, our council.
Delia?
Was out there with the mask on, out there with the people protesting, like.
And then just say that that's not going to spread the virus. Of course it does, man. People are chanting and they're coughing until they're getting tear gas. Like, you have to be a science denier to think that that's not going to help spread it. But when that's not being talked about, of course people aren't going to trust you. Like, respect comes on both sides, dude. Respect is earned where it's given.
Yes.
And if they're not giving us respect by being honest with us, why should we respect them?
Well, it's not respecting them.
That's where
the confusion comes from, right? Because what they're like, we don't want to say like what they're saying is right, but they're doing it in the wrong way, right? They're doing it like in this imposing way that's like, I'm right, you're wrong, you got to do this, like, you know. And that's, you know, we gotta sort of kind of filter through that and just be like respectful human beings. Just realize that there's something actually going out there, like there's whatever it is, COVID, the flu, some kind of sickness is out there, right, affecting people, who's, you know, killing people. So let's just be conscionable human beings. Let's follow the rules. Or let's follow our own rules, right? Or at least what we think is right, and wear the mask, social distance, and, you know, do the right thing. Keep our restaurants clean, keep our grocery stores clean. Something that, in my opinion, should have been being done the whole time already. And so COVID kind of came in and sort of corrected that and shifted that, and, you know, something that should have been done the whole time. But as far as wearing a mask and social distance, that's you're right as an American. If you want to go out and risk your life, or risk getting other people sick, or if you don't feel like you're risking people, that's also your right to believe that too.
Yeah.
You know, but you know, we're all Americans. I believe that we should have just bit the bullet, you know, wear the mask
temporarily,
right?
But then you also got to get just compensation if you're
Yes.
being told you can't work, and if there's
Yes.
no plan, then
Yes.
you shouldn't be
I agree.
telling anybody to bite a bullet with no
Right.
plan in place to help
and not,
the
and not
small
defund the
businesses.
police
Yeah.
and not know what to do with the funds. Right? If you're gonna
Yeah,
if you're gonna
and not know
defund
what to do
our
with the
if you're gonna defund our police, like you said, let's at least you know, use those millions of dollars to help struggling businesses, help pedicab drivers, help the homeless, help people that are actually
Well,
you know,
they overly help the homeless, but they really just help their buddies at the nonprofits to
Yeah.
just to give them a payday. But anyway, Casey, thank you so much.
sir.
Dude. I really appreciate it. Hey, we're still in the midst of early voting before we start. If you live in 78744, 78745,
78748 78617.
it's not too late to vote. Casey Ramos, that's the guy you got to vote for, dude. He's got my full endorsement, and even if we disagree on stuff, he's the most reasonable candidate running in this entire city council race that's
appreciate it, man.
actively
Thank you.
trying to actually get a seat right now. So Casey Ramos, that's the dude you got to vote for. I feel so comfortable saying this. I'm super excited that you came on the Pedicab and talked to me. So thank you, dude, and you're killing it. Keep killing with the hat, bro. You're gonna do great things.
I have to let people know, man. We're still in Texas, man.
We're still in Texas. We're not
you know?
in California anymore. We're not in California just yet, and let's keep it that way. Thank you.
Yeah, man. Appreciate it.
All right.